Hi everyone, welcome to SATdecoded.com. Today I wanted to talk about functions. Functions are actually one of my favorite topics in math because, at least to me, they're a lot of fun. In fact, you really can't spell functions without fun. So let's get started. In this video, I just wanted to do a quick introduction to the topic of functions, and in future videos we can talk about the more advanced topics relating to functions. You may have seen functions before. They look like f of x, g of x, and h of x. And usually they are accompanied by some sort of equation. For example, f of x equals x squared plus 5, or g of x equals x minus 3, or perhaps even something more complicated like h of x equals x squared minus 4, all divided by 6. I like to think of functions as input, output machines. So to give you a real-world example, let's take a look here. Let's say we have this machine here, a vending machine. And if we think about the role or the purpose of the machine, in essence, we're talking about the function of the machine. The word function literally means purpose or role. So what is the purpose of this vending machine? Well, I don't know about you, but I usually like to input money into this machine. And when I input money, it gives me some sort of output, in this case, some Coke. So that is the function or the role of this machine. You input something, money, and it outputs something, Coke. So let's see how this works in math. Sometimes they'll give you, let's talk about, let's just use this first one. F of x equals x squared plus 5, the one I had on the top right here. I'm going to refer to this equation right here as the master formula, because this is the formula that we're always going to refer back to for the next set of questions. So let's say the question asks you, what is f of 3 equal? Well, to solve f of 3, we need to identify what the input is. And this is quite simple. The input is just whatever value is inside the parentheses. Notice that this 3 is in the exact same position as this x. So in other words, x is the generic input, and 3 is the precise exact input that we will be evaluating right now. So how do inputs work? Well, this equation right here is our master formula, so wherever we see the x, which was our original input, we're just going to replace it with our new input of 3. So f of 3 is going to be equal to 3 squared plus 5, which equals 9 plus 5, which equals 14. So f of 3 equals 14. Our output is 14. Let's try another one. Let's say they want us to find f of 0. So the input, again, is whatever is inside the parentheses, in this case 0. And wherever we see the x, which is being replaced by the 0, we're just going to change it to a 0 now. So f of 0 equals 0 squared plus 5. And 0 squared is, of course, still 0, so plus 5 is equal to 5. F of 0 gives us an output of 5. Let's try a little trickier one. Let's say they want us to evaluate f of negative 2. So what is the input now? Well, again, it's still the same thing, the same idea of whatever is inside the parentheses, that is our input. So our input here is negative 2, and we just replace our x with our negative 2. So f of negative 2 equals negative 2 squared plus 5, right? But be careful here. If I just write it like this, negative 2 squared plus 5, that's actually wrong, because there's a huge difference between negative 2 squared versus the quantity of negative 2 squared. If we look at just this side, this is calculated by just taking the 2 to the power of 2 and then adding this negative sign at the end. So this becomes negative 4. Versus this side, it's the entire quantity of negative 2 being taken to the second power. So that is negative 2 times another negative 2. And of course, two negatives become positive. So this becomes positive 4. Negative 4 is not equal to positive 4. So we have to be very careful right here. If we notice our master formula, we see that the entire x is being squared. So because our x is the quantity of negative 2, we need to take the quantity of negative 2 squared in parentheses. All of that needs to be squared. So f of negative 2 really equals positive 4 plus 5, which equals 9. And 9 is our output because that's what came out. So that's how you do functions when they ask for a specific number. But sometimes they won't ask for numbers. They'll make it a little bit more complicated by using variables. So let's continue using our same master formula. F of x equals x squared plus 5. That's our master. So let's say the question now is asking us what is f of a. This is a little bit tricky, so bear with me. If you think about what x is just a variable, and variables can represent anything, any number. A is also a variable, so a can also represent any number. But in this case, our a is inside the parentheses, so that is the input, because our x used to be our input, and our a is now replacing the x. In other words, x equals a. So we follow the same idea as before. Whatever our input is, we just replace it where the x used to be. So f of a equals a squared plus 5. Because we have no idea what a actually is, it's not given in the question. They don't tell us, for example, a equals 4. We just know it's a. So f of a equals a squared plus 5 is the simplest terms we can get this function to. And we'll just leave it like that. Let's try another one. What if they asked us the value of f of 2a? This is very similar, but it's a little bit trickier because of this 2 in front. Following the same idea that we've been doing, this 2a, this entire 2a, is the input, and that's going to replace our x in our master formula. So we put 2a squared plus 5, right? Be careful, we have to do the quantity of 2a squared plus 5. If we don't remember to put the parentheses, we actually get a completely different number. 2a squared versus the quantity of 2a squared is different, because this is just 2 times a squared, whereas this, you have to take the 2 and distribute it into each part of inside the parentheses. So we get 2 squared, a squared on this side, which becomes 4a squared. And 4a squared and is not equal to 2a squared. So we have to be very careful here. This becomes 4a squared plus 5. Just remember to take the entire value inside the parentheses, put that in the new parentheses over here, and then square it. All right, let's try another one. What if we want to find f of 2x? This is tricky because a lot of people get confused. They think that if our original master formula said x, how can x suddenly become 2x? Because x is not equal to x in most cases, right? How can x suddenly become twice itself? But in the case of functions, this doesn't matter. All that matters is we look at what is inside the parentheses. And in this case, 2x is inside the parentheses, so our 2x is now equal to our original x. So wherever the x is, we're just going to replace it with 2x. Again, it needs to be the quantity of 2x, so we have to remember to put our parentheses 2x squared plus 5. And if we evaluate that, that becomes 4x squared plus 5. So our output is this whole expression, 4x squared plus 5. Sometimes functions will be a little bit trickier because rather than giving you the input like I've been giving you, they'll give you the output and ask you what the input is. I like this master formula, so let's keep using it. F of x equals x squared plus 5. But rather than our previous questions where I gave you the input, for example, f of 4, where 4 is the input and you just evaluate it, this time I'm going to make the question a little bit harder. I'm going to say f of x equals, let's say, 30. And they're asking you x equals what? Remember, the x right here is our input because this x is right here. It's very important to recognize that f of x as the whole function is not equal to x because there's this f in front, so of course they're different. This right here, this side, is actually considered the output, while this side, this x, which is just the part inside the parentheses, is our input. So going back to our question, f of x equals 30. So what is x? Well, if we know that f of x is our output, and we know that at some point it equals the 30, which is what comes out after we put something in, then we know output equals output. And in between, we have to see what else this f of x equals. Well, according to our master formula, f of x equals x squared plus 5. So let's just put that here in the middle. F of x equals x squared plus 5, which equals 30 in the case of our question. So what I've done is say output equals output equals output. They're all exactly the same thing, just expressed differently. Now that we know that x squared plus 5 equals 30, we can forget about the function side. Let's just talk about this right here. This equation, x squared plus 5 equals 30. That's a pretty basic algebra, equation that we can solve. So how do we solve that? We subtract 5 from both sides, so we get x squared equals 30 minus 5. So x squared equals 25. So that means x is equal plus or minus 5. Don't forget that it can be both positive or negative, because when you square either one, it becomes positive 25. So as long as you can identify inputs versus outputs, you'll be in good shape. So I hope that was helpful for you. That was a quick introduction to how functions work, and hope to see you in the next video.